Number 10. Civil War I. Oh boy, the first Civil War caused a great uproar and a good deal of problems in the superhero community. It also made Earth vulnerable to attack, as it evidently involved just infighting. When superheroes turn on each other, that's bad. When two main superheroes who are part of the same team turn on each other, that's ridiculous. And that's exactly what happened with Civil War I. While the inciting incident that divided heroes wasn't caused by Iron Man or Captain America, and actually was pretty serious, they both had become leaders of two different approaches for how to best resolve that main issue. Iron Man believed that superhuman beings needed a shorter and tighter leash basically, and should work with the government so they could kind of be overseen. Number 9. Axis. Axis was an event where we saw heroes and villains sort of do kind of like a role reversal. This happened as a result of a spell backfiring, cast by, well, you probably guessed it, none other than Scarlet Witch. Wanda, for being a powerful magic user, has kind of a challenging time with magic. Although, to be fair, she actually wasn't the only caster involved here, although she is the one that we often talk about. Doctor Strange started casting with her, and when he got taken out, Doctor Doom actually helped in his stead. So Doom is also possibly to blame as well, even though Wanda usually takes a lot of the flack for this one. What launched the Axis event was Wanda and Doom attempting to cast a spell on the evolved and supremely powerful version of Red Skull, Red Onslaught, which sort of came about when Magneto was like, I know how to fix this, I'll kill you, and then Red Onslaught happened, so it didn't work out so great. The spell actually succeeded, but kind of backfired in that many other heroes and villains within a certain radius also got hit with the spell unintentionally. Oops. And friends, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, may I recommend that you check out our latest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 8. Hydra Cap. Hydra Cap is definitely a pretty bad thing that happened for the Avengers in, well, in many regards. One, Hydra Captain America is literally another version of Captain America who for a while we actually thought was the main continuity version for real. So we're not off to a great start with that. Number 2, the Avengers failed to stop Hydra Supreme Cap from taking over the US. Number 3, some of the Avengers were even manipulated into joining Hydra and Hydra Cap's forces. Some of them were actually like possessed, and some of them were just kind of made to do so. All around, it was just a rough time and not a great look for the Avengers overall. I'm actually surprised there isn't more pushback from the public today as a result of this one. Number 7, killed Jean Grey. Wolverine has done this on multiple occasions, and in one instance, kinda killed Jean on repeat, stuck on a loop of death after she refused to stay dead thanks to the resurrection powers of the Phoenix Force. Initially, Wolverine killed Jean out of mercy to save her from a gruesome death, burning up as they were in a space shuttle that was rapidly getting closer and closer to the sun. However, this death was actually quite helpful, as it allowed Jean to at least regenerate, unlocking her full potential as the Phoenix, which meant that she could actually then save them, so yay! And surprisingly, she also wasn't even mad about Wolverine killing her. Bonus! I'd be pretty mad, to be honest. I'd be like, wow, you just killed me. That's pretty shady, man. But I guess when you're like, but you unlocked my full potential, it's like, well, alright. Shortly thereafter, Jean would be killed permanently by Magneto, but years later would return again, only to have Wolverine, afraid of the potential of Dark Phoenix, along with the rest of the X-Men, kill her on repeat for a while by stabbing her through with his claws until he realized this wasn't exactly having the same effect that he'd hoped, as the Phoenix Force basically just kept rezzing Jean, so it doesn't always work out. Still, that's a lot of Jean deaths. That is, I think, at least 9 Jean deaths total. I think 8 stabbies the one time, 1 stabby the other time. A lot of deaths. A lot of deaths without any actual death, actually, now that I think about it. Number 6, final fight. When the Earth was threatened by incursions during the events of Time Runs Out, what did the Avengers do? Save the day? Try to stop those incursions? Not exactly. Captain America had once been a member of the Illuminati, the secret group of heroes who banded together to resolve ideally all of Earth's problems without anyone actually even knowing. A group of superpowered intellectual, philosophical, and moral geniuses. At least, that's what they thought. When the incursions were discovered to be a threat, and the majority of the group felt that it was important to consider the possibility that they'd maybe need to destroy other worlds to sort of save themselves from it, Captain America fought vehemently against that idea. As such, his mind was wiped, and he was decidedly ejected from the group. When he regained his memories, rather than use the Avengers to fight against the incursions and find a way to stop them, he actually spent the last bit of time before the multiverse was to end hunting down the Illuminati and in a toe-to-toe battle with Iron Man. Spider-Man.
Number 5. Robbie and Ellie. So this one's a little murky. Robbie Reyes is the current Ghost Rider, and he's great. He's super interesting. His car is hella cool. I just find him to be a smidge bit more evil than his other counterparts, and that's because when Robbie Reyes becomes Ghost Rider, he is not a spirit of vengeance. Robbie is instead possessed by a ghost of a guy named Eli. Now it is revealed in all new Ghost Rider number 8 in 2014 that Eli was not a spirit of vengeance like Johnny Blaze's Zarathos, but instead Eli is Robbie's uncle and a satanic serial de-lifer who took the lives of and dismembered at least 37 people in rituals before he was finally taken out by the police in 1999. And he lived in the house that the Reyes brothers, Gabe and Robbie, took to living in. So while Robbie himself isn't necessarily a bad dude, not entirely, the alter ego he now lives with is indeed quite evil, and they constantly have to do mental battle for Robbie to stay in control and not completely give in to Eli's bloodlust. That's a no for me. I don't know.
Number 4. Civil War II. Even worse by far than Civil War I was its follow-up, Civil War II. In this story, we got more infighting, but for less logical reasons. This time, it was Iron Man versus Captain Marvel, because I guess Iron Man just really needs to like duke it out with all the captains. This one is one we can also likely more blame on the behind the scenes, as Marvel was definitely aiming to capitalize on Civil War I's success with this follow-up, but it just didn't work out too well because Civil War II didn't really make a lot of sense for most readers. But in terms of the canon, Carol, I think, was hands down to blame here for just being, well, unreasonably aggressive on the matter that was up for debate. Whether or not to let Inhuman Ulysses, a precog, predict the future and then based on those predictions stop future criminals from committing future crimes before of course they even happen. Yeah, and I say that as a Captain Marvel fan. I'm a big Carol Danvers fan, but this one was pretty one-sided in my mind. Even I am like, I think Carol was wrong and Tony was right, and I don't say that very often. Number 3. Killed the Mongrels. These last few spots are definitely all competitors for the number 1 spot on this list in my opinion. This one is especially bad because the Mongrels were actually Wolverine's children, although he didn't know it at the time that he was forced to fight them. They were rounded up by his known son with Itsu, Daken. Daken was working with the Red Right Hand, a group who had a personal vendetta against Wolverine. Daken created the team known as the Mongrels, not even really to defeat Wolverine, despite Daken having trained them himself. It was kind of like a win-win situation for him. Either Wolverine would be killed by the children he didn't know or had forgotten he'd sired over the years, or Wolverine would end up killing them all. The latter was kind of how it went down, and when Wolverine learned that the members of the Mongrels had actually all been his children, and he didn't know that, he was pretty heartbroken. So I guess point 1 for Red Right Hand and Daken. Only sad points for Wolverine. No points for the Mongrels because they died. Number 2. Ignoring Scarlet Witch. Avengers Disassembled was bad, but likely what was worse was that it kind of could all have been avoided if the rest of the team had simply, I don't know, cared more about their teammate and friend, Wanda. Scarlet Witch had a lot happen to her, and although this is of course superhero comics where every day that you're alive there's a threat of trauma or, you know, of the world ending, or both, there had been many signs that Wanda was not in a good place. Rather than do something about it or, you know, attempt to, I don't know, get her help, mainly the Avengers just went on as though everything was fine. I mean, I know they all each have a lot individually going on, but come on guys. If you have someone with reality warping powers on your team and they are using those powers to create fake children which then disappear without a trace after they also lose their life partner thanks to them basically being taken apart, mind wiped, and rebuilt as a blank slate without emotion, you might think to offer them some help or, you know, at least check in to see like if they need anything, if they need a hug or a conversation. I'm not blaming them for what Wanda did, but I would at least like to hold them accountable for being pretty much awful friends to her in her time of need. Number 1. No more mutants. Probably one of the worst things that at least one of the Avengers did was to threaten all of the mutant kind's existence with just, you know, a few words. Although admittedly, this wasn't so much Wanda's fault as it was Marvel's, who of course needed some reason to get rid of mutants for a bit because, you know, they'd sold the rights away and they weren't really profiting as much from comics involving mutants at that time, and they simply had too many of them. But reasoning behind the story aside, during House of M, Wanda in the end struck out at all mutants because her father, she felt, was more obsessed with fighting for mutant rights than he was with his actual own flesh and blood family. Although we'd later learn that Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver weren't even really like flesh and blood family. To begin with, part of the reason that Wanda suffered the mental break, which caused House of M and later M Day, had to do with the fact that her friends and Avengers didn't seem to notice notice or perhaps care that Wanda was suffering as a result of losing her children. And in fact, let us not forget that Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, of the Avengers, was also the one who even kinda like caused Wanda to remember her kids to begin with. She kinda spilled those beans. So whose fault was M-Day really in the end? It was still Wanda's. Wanda was the one that said the words, so it's still her fault. But Janet was there.
Number 10. He gives up fighting the Hulk to let him sick the Illuminati. One of the Hulk's most awesome and powerful moments came in the World War Hulk story, when the Incredible Hulk gathered up his warband on Sakaar and headed to Earth for some much desired revenge on the Illuminati. The Illuminati had tricked Hulk, banished him into space, left him stranded on a world where he was forced to become a gladiator and work his way to become king, and then the ship they sent him there on self-destructed and caused the passing of tons of people he cared about. So yes, the Illuminati deserved what was coming to them, but they still tried to put up a fight. When Hulk arrived on Earth more mad than he has ever been, there were only two people who ever had a chance of bringing him down. The first was the incredibly powerful Sentry, and the second was Ghost Rider. When Ghost Rider showed up and started fighting, the Hulk decided to try and squash him like a bug, quote unquote. Only problem was, now that he had knocked out Johnny Blaze, Zarathos was allowed to take a bit more control, and he attacked back with so much hellfire the two got to an almost stalemate. The not so bad thing that we're talking about though is when Zarathos, who only punishes the guilty, sees that Hulk is truly innocent in this situation. So he betrays the Illuminati and basically allows the Hulk to go ahead with his destruction. Honestly, kind of awesome. I wasn't even upset. Let's find some better examples. But before I do that, do you like anime as well as comics? Well, luckily for you, now we have a full channel completely dedicated to nerdy videos about specifically anime and manga. Go check out Amazing Top 10 Anime. Let's just move on. Number 9. Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch. Yet again, I can't really say I blame Johnny Blaze all too much for this one, but still. When Danny Ketch became a new Ghost Rider after Johnny had imprisoned Zarathos in an amulet, Johnny was more than a little suspicious. Johnny Blaze traveled from the west coast to confront this new Ghost Rider, thinking that Zarathos had returned somehow. Blaze hunted down Danny Ketch Ghost Rider and tried to take his life multiple times, while Ghost Rider kept attempting to escape Blaze and bring the villain Blackout, who was dispatching multiple people, to justice. Johnny kept this up until he finally watched Ghost Rider save a child in Central Park. This finally made him become less suspicious of Ghost Rider, and he stopped trying to take him out repeatedly. He instead decided to observe Daniel to make sure that he wasn't Zarathos, and he taught Daniel how to fight and protect himself when he wasn't transformed into Ghost Rider. So ultimately he made up for it, but still a little impulsive with the old de-lifing there, Johnny. I want to tone that down. Number 8. Alejandra Jones, Hellfire Exploded a Country. Alright, buckle up because this one involves Adam. Not me, like the biblical Adam. In Marvel Comics, Adam has devoted himself to one day eradicating sin from mankind, at any cost, even human souls. To that end, Adam took in orphan children and trained them within a Nicaraguan temple to make them perfect as hosts of the Ghost Rider. Now, with the Fear Itself event and the arrival of the Serpent, Adam decided this was a sign to make his move and offered to free Johnny Blaze from the Ghost Rider. Adam awakened the Seeker and had him pick the new Ghost Rider among those students that he was training. Alejandra Jones was the one chosen and was immediately sent to battle Scotty, who was one of the Serpent's avatars. Now when she came back, Adam demanded that she destroy the sin in the other orphans, which would leave them as husks. She obviously refused, but in return, Adam enslaved her. Now Johnny Blaze, realizing he made a boo-boo, journeyed to Nicaragua to stop them, but Adam turned Alejandra's power into a bomb that went off, taking away the sin from the Nicaraguans, turning them into mindless emotional shells of the individuals they once were. The only ones unaffected by this blast were Johnny and the Seeker. Basically, Alejandra was used to destroy the whole country of Nicaragua.
Number 7. Iron Man joins Kang. Yeesh, the crossing. What a weird crossover event. Every time I think I'm over it, we come up with a list topic where I kind of can't help but like return to it. In this event, Iron Man, one of the main Avengers, was revealed to be secretly one of the baddest of the bad, as we learned that Iron Man had actually been working for Kang, or rather Kang's Immortus version, for years. That's right, it turns out that Iron Man is actually a sleeper agent for Kang, or he was. He kind of still is, because he kind of got reconciled into one being, but it's still the old Iron Man. Anyways, as weird as it sounds, this was actually an even worse weirdness than Captain America working for Hydra in my mind. At least that made more sense to me. Iron Man would fight against the Avengers, and when they struggled to defeat him, they called in a past version of himself for him to beat and almost kill.
Number 6. killing Starseed. There was a time in the 70s when Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider joined up with the team known as the Legion of Monsters. While not entirely bad, some of the characters here were monsters, and they did indeed give in to their monster tendencies. One such moment would come in Marvel Premiere number 28 in 1975, when a seemingly peaceful alien from a highly advanced race came and plopped a mountain down in California. It caused a bunch of earthquakes which attracted the Monster Legion, and thanks to Morbius and Werewolf by Night who gave in to their hunger, they attacked the alien. Now admittedly the Ghost Rider tried to intervene, but they still, as a group, caused the passing of Starseed, and he even helped them to get back their non-monstrous forms. So it was kind of rude.
Number 5. Actually killed innocents. Other than Jamie, who Wolverine seemingly almost had killed but then ultimately did not have killed, and the countless other baddies that Wolverine has faced and defeated over the years, there are also other youngsters that Wolverine has been forced to take down. One of the worst moments where Wolverine has been forced to eliminate a youth happens actually outside of the main continuity in the Ultimate Universe, the reality of Earth 1610. Here Wolverine is sent on a mission to do the X-Men's dirty work by taking out a young mutant who threatens the very rights mutants are basically fighting for. The sad part, it really isn't this kid's fault. His mutant power simply manifested without him knowing and caused him to accidentally vaporize the entire residents of his town, including seemingly his high school crush or his girlfriend or sweetheart and his parents. So really feels pretty bad, and you're like, wow, Wolverine, really, wow, that's what you're doing? But he's like, hey, I gotta protect the mutants or something by killing a mutant or something. Seems a little shady, the reasoning there.
Number 4. Power Obsessed. Ghost Rider Danny Ketch was an interesting one for sure. His spirit of vengeance happened to actually be an ancestor of both him and Johnny Blaze named Noble Kale, who became a spirit of vengeance. In Danny Ketch Ghost Rider number 2, Danny gets the spirit exorcised from him, but instead of doing him good, he went a little bonkers, craving the spirit's power like some kind of addiction. He tried to set himself on fire in Times Square to get the power back. That's how crazy he went. He ended up hanging out in bars, fighting other people just for fun. Yeah, sounds like a blast. But in a turn of events, he was fed doses of the Ghost Rider power, feeding his addiction. Then he began hunting down the other Ghost Riders and Verminous Rex, taking him down and absorbing a whole bunch of Ghost Rider souls and quote-unquote overdosing on the power. The Archangel Zadkiel intervened and saved him, but made Danny one of his knights, hunting down other spirits of vengeance, which led him after Johnny Blaze and saw Danny convince a young man, Lucas Collier, to end his own life. So yeah, he's kind of absolutely horrible.
Number 3. Avengers Disassembled. Avengers Disassembled was a story arc where the Avengers essentially imploded. What had really happened was Wanda had learned of the secret being kept from her, that she'd had fake children, which she'd in essence kinda made, who had been taken from her and then wiped from her mind by Agatha Harkness. Now, Wanda didn't like that too much, and in essence turned against Agatha, killing her before turning on her friends and colleagues, causing them to lose control, attack one another, and sicking reality warped versions basically of like Vision and dead Avengers on them. Not only did the Avengers hurt one another, but they were made to do so by one of their own, and likely were even somewhat responsible for Wanda getting to a point where she decided to turn on them. So really, who's to blame here? Is it Wanda or is it the Avengers? Or is it kind of everybody?
Number 2. Johnny hires Cosmic Ghost Rider. In an alternate future when Thanos was attacking the Earth and going on his mad conquest, Frank Castle was killed and sent to Hell. While down there, he made a deal with Mephisto to gain the spirit of vengeance and defeat Thanos. The only problem is, when he came back, he was too late and Thanos had taken the lives of everyone on Earth. So he roamed the Earth totally alone and it drove him insane. Castle made a deal with Galactus to gain the power Cosmic in exchange for the Earth. So now, it's Frank Castle with the spirit of vengeance and the power Cosmic. Yes, it is as cool as it sounds, but him going bonkers has made things much more interesting. Unfortunately, he actually goes on to sort of join Thanos in his quest. A lot of stuff happens with the baby and adult Thanos, but basically, in Earth 616, Johnny Blaze is the king of hell, forces this Cosmic Ghost Rider to attack the Avengers in Avengers Volume 8 number 24, and forces Robbie Reyes into a race for Robbie's power, threatening the life of Robbie's brother Gabe. So yeah, this is Johnny being a jerk again, hiring an insanely powerful Cosmic Ghost Rider to de-life the Avengers. Luckily it doesn't turn out that way. And in at number 1 is Cosmic Ghost Rider. But the question is, why would Johnny Blaze make Cosmic Ghost Rider go after the Avengers? And what's so wrong with that? Well, you see, Cosmic Ghost Rider in his quest against Thanos actually joined up with Thanos, like I said before. And then he went back in time to try and raise a baby Thanos to be a better Mad Titan, as in like less death obsessed. This brought him into direct conflict with an alternate Guardians of the Galaxy led by Cable. Now when the fight finally starts, Cosmic Ghost Rider is trying to shield baby Thanos from the violence, so he hands the baby over to Uatu the Watcher and starts going to town on these Guardians. The only problem is Cable keeps using his time traveling abilities to bring back more and more heroes to take on this Cosmic Ghost Rider. By my counting, the insane Frank Castle Cosmic Ghost Rider took the lives of about 41 different time-displaced superpowered beings. And when he was finally overwhelmed, he had failed completely because he was saved by the baby Thanos who took out the remaining heroes. And then a Punisher-dressed Thanos from the future shows up calling Frank dad. I don't know, it's insane. Just go read it.
Number 10. Kills. One of the worst things about Wolverine in general, but also maybe one of the best things, is that he kills. Or more now that he's willing to kill, I guess. Although back in the day, he really did kill pretty indiscriminately. And like I said, it was basically what made him one of the worst, while also being the best at what he does. Although as Wolverine has even said himself, what he does isn't usually very nice. Now Wolverine is more reserved to maiming those he comes up against, only really killing those who he feels really deserve it, who are beyond redemption. But even then, the fact that Wolverine thinks he gets to decide those folks' fate could be seen as, well, pretty problematic. I mean, Wolverine's a pretty good dude all around, but I still don't think, even as a hero, that he should get the judgment call on who lives and who dies. You know what I mean? It definitely makes him a way more complex and interesting character. I will say that, so it is good in that way. Number 9. Almost killed an innocent. During his first long-running Wolverine series, Wolverine at one point must face off against Lady Deathstrike. The first time around that this happens in the series is back in the past, after Wolverine has seemingly traveled back in time via a picture. It makes a lot more sense if you read the story, but it's basically what happens. While attempting to escape Lady Deathstrike and defeat the German World War II soldiers who have infiltrated the part of Spain Wolverine is in, he and the rebels are faced with the decision of what to do with a young prisoner who has seen too much and could cause them to be captured if he's forced to talk. Prisoner's name is Jamie, by the way. I didn't write that down, but I know that, just in case you're wondering. One of the options on the table is to simply take out the prisoner Jamie, but because of his age, Wolverine ultimately helps to let the boy go and set him free. However, for a small moment there, it is implied that Wolverine has basically made the other choice and decided to kill the prisoner rather than let him walk free, with a promise that he won't tell anyone what he has seen or heard about where the rebels are headed. It's a very shocking moment where you're like, wait, did that just happen? Don't worry, it didn't happen. Oh, it only almost happened. The notion was entertained, and that I think is still pretty bad. Number 8. Relationship with Squirrel Girl. Wolverine's relationship with Squirrel Girl, as was established in New Avengers, might be considered by some to be one of the worst things he's ever done, or that was ever done to him as a character, I guess. This is likely because Squirrel Girl, aka Doreen Green, is often depicted as being from a different generation entirely than Wolverine, and that's not even considering that he's actually even older than he appears, and then the generation that he first appeared in. Squirrel Girl and Wolverine were implied to have had a romantic relationship in the 2010 New Avengers series in issue number 7, and many consider it to be pretty odd. And I gotta say, the way it's also kind of weirdly like shoehorned in there, you're like, what? Why is this in here? What purpose narratively does this really give us? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists about Wolverine, then be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Goodness knows he's done a lot of bad things. Even Wolverine would say that though. He'd be like, I got a lot of things in my closet. I got a lot of skeletons in my closet, bub.
Number 7. Beat Up Angel. So back in the Avengers Volume 1, issue number 214, Johnny Blaze and the Avengers come into conflict. Johnny was hanging out on some rocks in New Mexico, brooding and hating on the world for everyone who abandons him, when all of a sudden Warren Worthington III comes zooming down the road in a Ferrari with a girl in the passenger seat. Johnny seems to get really jealous and decides to scare the hell out of the couple, causing Warren to crash the car. Johnny then challenges Warren to a race. Now to be fair, Warren gets a good punch in on Johnny, but that just makes the Ghost Rider use his Hellfire to burn Warren's soul and put him into a coma. Kind of really overdoing it there, Ghosty. Thor, Tigra, Iron Man, and Captain America head to the area of the incident to take on the Ghost Rider, only for him to give them much more of a fight than they probably expected.
Number 6. Got even with the Punisher. So the Punisher has done some pretty heinous things to Wolverine over the years in their ongoing fight for who can be the most edgy. This has less to do with Wolverine and Punisher feuding within the comics, and more to do with shots being fired between a few of their passionate writers, Wolverine's Frank Thierry and Punisher's Garth Ennis. Now granted, Thierry is also written a few Punisher titles in his time, although I don't think Ennis has ever written a Wolverine titled book, at least not as far as I know, which is surprising to me. But anyways, I digress. In Thierry's 2003 issue of Wolverine, issue 186, Thierry ended up aiming to get revenge on the Punisher for what Garth Ennis had him do in 2002 during his Marvel Knights run on Punisher in issue number 17. Ennis had Punisher brutally attack and maim Wolverine, basically, even going so far as to steamroll him, and some other things, which I don't know if I can even say on YouTube, but they were bad. To get revenge, Thierry had Wolverine imply the Punisher was gay. Doesn't sound so bad until you read it and you see how it's presented, with Logan implying the Punisher is basically lesser or less of a man or a hero because of his possible sexual orientation. Yikes. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't write that. It's unfortunate because now that's also on Wolverine as a character. Eek. Number 5. Create the Illuminati. Sometimes it only takes one Avenger to mess up everything for all of us. And that's kind of what happened when Tony Stark, aka Iron Man of the Avengers, decided to bring together the secret superhero group known as the Illuminati. Like I said, this wasn't the combined effort of the Avengers, but when you think about the Avengers now and even before, Tony has been a staple of that team for a very long time. And the Illuminati was really his genius idea. His genius idea. The Illuminati as a group have definitely caused more trouble than they're worth, causing a lot more problems in the cosmos than they've actually solved. Playing a key role in the end of the multiverse during Time Runs Out when they couldn't save the world, helping to cause Secret Invasion and World War Hulk as well. So yeah. Number 4. Became Apocalypse. Of course, this one also did not happen in the main continuity, but hey, it still happened, so it still counts. This all went down in Age of Apocalypse, where Wolverine, here known as Weapon X, would fight against Apocalypse for most of his life. At one point, he was part of Magneto's X-Men, but would leave them to rescue Jean Grey, his love, and later his wife, and fight alongside her against Apocalypse in their own way. Eventually, however, Jean was believed to have been killed and Weapon X would become a recluse, only to find out years later that she was actually alive. Dun dun dun. When the Celestials returned to Earth following the death of Apocalypse, James Howlett offered himself to the Celestials in order to prevent the destruction of Earth. However, this caused him to become the very villain he had hated the most, as the Celestials used tech to modify him, giving him great power but basically warping his mind, and causing him to become Apocalypse's heir, known as Weapon Omega. He was basically just like, evolution is what it's all about, baby. People were like, but don't you see? You're Apocalypse now. And he's like, but it's different. I'm trying to save people by killing people. Wait a minute, maybe you're right.
Number 3. Throwing his brother off a bridge. Speaking of Danny Ketch, he is actually the brother of Johnny Blaze. In the beginning of Ghost Rider Volume 9, Johnny Blaze was the king of hell, something that happened in Damnation after Johnny's soul was sent to hell and he convinced Zarathos to help him in a journey to usurp Mephisto's throne. Either way, Johnny Blaze began capturing demons roaming the earth. He tried to recruit the help of his brother, Danny, but Ketch refused and tried to convince Johnny that his position as the king of hell was corrupting his soul. Blaze didn't seem to like that too much, and so he very unceremoniously stripped Ketch of his spirit of vengeance and threw him off the Manhattan Bridge. Nothing like stealing your brother's power and throwing him off a bridge, am I right? Luckily though for Danny, he got saved from drowning by caretaker Sarah, but this is like the 4th time Johnny has just gone way overboard or over bridge. I'm just gonna stop.
Number 2. Made moves on MJ. So this one is so awful, it of course cannot come from the main canon of Earth 616. Instead, this point comes to us from the alternate reality of Earth 1610, also known as the Ultimate Universe. After Wolverine had she attempted to get back at him by making him telepathically swap bodies with the person he hated the most, which ended up being Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. Although Jean later says, oh sorry, I didn't know this would happen to you, Peter. Oops. But anyways, while swapped, both heroes struggle to deal with the everyday while occupying each other's bodies. However, Wolverine still manages to find some time to put some moves on MJ. Well, they don't seal the deal. This is really messed up because Mary Jane at this point in time is a teenager and she didn't even know that Peter and Logan had swapped bodies, so she thought that it was just Peter looking for some action instead of the super old at this point thanks to his healing factor X-Men hero Wolverine. Although not a very heroic moment here, Wolverine. What you doing? Don't do that. Number 1. Kill Daken. I think one of the worst things you can do as a parent is to kill those you're supposed to be looking out for and taking care of and protecting, even if your son happens to be the often villainous Daken, now commonly referred to by his actual birth/human name, Akihiro. At one point, Wolverine was forced to put down Akihiro during a fight. Akihiro had held a grudge against his old man for years, having been trained by Romulus to hate meet Logan after being stolen from his mother's womb and raised by Romulus. For years, Wolverine thought his son was dead, not knowing to come searching for Akihiro. But Akihiro was raised to believe he was basically abandoned, and he also grew up in a household where people didn't like him because he was half Japanese and half Canadian, so that was another issue. Thanks to some plotting from the devious and diabolical mind of Victor Creed, aka Wolverine's nemesis Sabretooth, Wolverine was forced into a death match with Daken, a match that ended with Wolverine killing Akihiro, drowning him in a puddle, while sadly thinking of what could have been had Akihiro been given a chance at a semi-normal life, being raised by Wolverine and of course his now deceased mother Itsu. What would it have been like if their life had been happy? We'll never know because he gets drowned in a puddle. But don't worry, Akihiro's alive and well now, so it all fixed itself. And now he and Wolverine are on great terms, so never mind, I guess.